first and foremost, on behalf of the school, I express our thanks and gratitude for your care for MBA, for your incredible support, and for your willingness to be out as we hope to move out of this COVID experience. We've had the largest number of attendees at events that we've had of late, and as I said last night, the Parents' Night, we've been able to do every single event this year, which has been really great for the school and great for the students. So I hope you enjoyed the Ellington Band outside under the direction of Jordan Frederick. They will appreciate your applause. I'll tell them about that tomorrow. And we'll start this evening with some music as well from our Headmaster singers who will sing There's a Meeting Here Tonight. So join me in welcoming the Headmaster singers behind me.
There is a meeting, there is a meeting, there is a meeting here tonight, there is a meeting here tonight, there is a meeting here tonight, there is a meeting here tonight. Well, there's a meeting here tonight, there's a meeting here tonight, I can tell by your friendly face, there's a meeting here tonight, hallelujah. There's a meeting here tonight, I can tell by your friendly face. There's a meeting here tonight. Well, I went down to the valley one day. Met old Satan on my way. What do you reckon old Satan did say? He said, turn back, young man, too young to pray, too young to pray, too young to pray. There's a meeting here tonight, I can tell by your friendly face. There's a meeting here tonight. Oh, there is a meeting, there is a meeting, there is a meeting here tonight. Hallelujah. There is a meeting, there is a meeting, there is a meeting here tonight. There is a meeting, there is a meeting, there is a meeting here tonight. There's a meeting here tonight. There's a meeting here tonight. I can tell by your friendly face. There's a meeting here tonight. Well, Satan got mad and I am glad. Satan got mad and I am glad. Lost the soul he thought he had. Lost the soul he thought. Whoa! Satan is a liar and a conjurer too. Satan is a liar and a conjurer too. Better watch out, brother, he'll conjure you, conjure you, conjure you. Well, there's a meeting here tonight. There's a meeting here tonight. I can tell by your friendly face. There's a meeting here tonight. Whoa, there is a meeting. There is a meeting. There is a meeting here tonight. Hallelujah. There is a meeting. There is a meeting. There is a meeting here tonight. There is a meeting. There is a meeting. There is a meeting here tonight. There is a meeting here tonight.
Can you hang on? So, Michael, if you just wait 1 second. I just wanted to say that I've always loved the music aspect of the school. I think many of you know that. And it just adds such a nice dimension. It's particularly nice to see boys that are involved in different activities from athletics to music. And it's been really fun. I remember going to a number of other boys' schools and watching their groups like this one. And I kept thinking, when we get the Headmaster singers here, to enjoy what they're doing, to really love coming up in front of people the music's going to be better and better. Before you all came in tonight, I was listening to them sing in the stairwell, just having fun. And I thought that is the way to make this great. And we have quite a large group of new singers in this group, and to see the progress they've made since the beginning of the school year to now is really great, and you're going to be even much, much better by the end of the year. So thanks very much. Join me in thanking them. Appreciate it. Thanks. Appreciate it. So let's watch a short film about MBA.
I'm talking today about what we can do here institutionally to inspire our boys to pursue excellence in everything they do.
My name's Jack. I'm going to keep this brief. So the death penalty in America is a flawed and very biased system that is based on error and oppression, basically. It targets the most vulnerable people in America, people like Walter McMillan who can't defend themselves, and it corrupts the integrity of our criminal justice system.
How does one even begin to try to live in a cage for a crime that he didn't commit?
And there's a couple of things that I was able to see between the first and the last visit to Afghanistan that I think are relevant to the conversation that's taking place in our nation right now. And I just want to share a few of those. You're not going to hear answers. You're not going to hear political points of view. What I'm going to try to do is give you just a couple of things to think about that hopefully you can carry forward and have discussion in your classroom.
We all helped to raise over $120,000 on behalf of Mr. Joy and Dr. Klausner, so if we give them a round of applause as well.
Always been a big fan of Montgomery Bell Academy. My son's been coming here since I did that commencement speech, and I just felt the spirit here that this was the right place for him. And after our conversation, after he experienced his first start playing football here at NBA, he was on cloud nine. And he says, Dad, you know, if I go on to any place else, I wouldn't be the man that I am today or becoming the man that I am today. So that showed me that he has been growing up, especially in this environment. So you guys are definitely on doing the right things. And anytime people can give to this fine institution, know that it's not giving to brick and mortar. They're giving to a life that can be changed for the better. And that's the most important part of it. You're truly molding souls and aligning them with their true life purpose.
So we thought showing you some imagery at the school would bring us sort of back into the daily life of MBA. And to add to that, two of my colleagues, Tim Boyd, who is the academic dean, and Robert Sawyer, who's the dean of the high school, are going to come up and make some comments, and then I'll finish, and then we'll enjoy dinner. So Tim, if you'd please come on up. He's on my left. Join me in welcoming Tim Boyd.
So good evening. It's great to see so many of you at an event again at MBA. And as Brad has mentioned several times, it's felt so great as this year has started to have so many of these events in person. Now, I was asked to say a few words this evening on the topic and concept of excellence and how we try and inculcate that at MBA. And this is not the easiest topic for an Englishman to talk about, not because we are incapable of excellence, but we don't always do very well at expressing it. Our gradation of achievement and positivity are a little more fatalistic than Americans might be used to. You may know, for instance, that one of the highest levels of praise an Englishman can give something is to say, that's not bad. That if you ask us how we're feeling, even if we're feeling great, we'll say, can't complain. And our way of letting you know we've had a really, really good day is to say, could have been worse. Actually, just a few more pointers. If you ever hear an Englishman come up to you and say, listen, I'm sorry, I know this is my fault, but they know it's your fault. And if they ever say something like, well, of course I have the greatest respect for you, well, as Southerners, just hear, bless your heart, when that expression. But thankfully, I've been here for nearly 20 years now, so I've managed to learn some more optimistic and upbeat language for occasions like this. Excellence is something that can be defined in many different ways, but in my view, we as a school need to think of it in terms of two categories: our excellence as an institution and the excellence we want our boys to achieve as gentlemen, scholars, and athletes. And as an institution, I feel we need to keep asking ourselves the question that Jimmy Carter used for his campaign biography at the start of his presidential run: why not the best? It was a question Carter himself had been asked nearly 30 years earlier by his first commanding officer in the Navy, and it was one he suggested all Americans should always be asking themselves about their nation's government and institutions. The idea being that Americans should never settle for pretty good or not bad. Instead, they should always be striving for improvement, always aspiring to that more perfect union. And this is how I think we should approach excellence as an institution. Not as a static recognition of momentary achievement. Those were some excellent exam scores this year. That was an excellent result in the match this week. But as a dynamic process of self-evaluation. With the resources and human talent we have at our disposal as a school and a community, are we offering our boys the best possible educational and athletic experience they could possibly have? And if not, why not the best? That doesn't mean an endless process of self-flagellation or despair when things aren't working as well as they should, or a fear or denial of failure, but rather an eagerness to search for ways to improve, whether in response to disappointment or success. A culture of excellence includes both a teacher reflecting on a lesson plan that went horribly wrong in the classroom and trying to figure out, how do I make this work? Or a coach coming back to their office after winning a state championship and thinking, how do I make this team stronger next year? This is the mindset we want to encourage in everyone, from the administration down to the first-year teacher. And that is why you see it embedded in the strategic plan that we're working on, and why we always try and find new creative academic, extracurricular, and athletic opportunities to offer. Secondly, I want to turn to what I think excellence should mean in terms of the boys. I think there are three types of excellence we ought to be both celebrating and cajoling them towards as a school. And I'd like to use 3 of my own recent advisees to illustrate each kind. And yes, I realize that's biased, but I have the microphone for these few minutes. The first is traditional excellence, being by any objective measure the best at what you're doing. Sam Meacham embodied this type of excellence last year. Valedictorian of his class, part of the #1 debate team in the nation, editor of the student paper, and still always looking to get stronger and better at any activity he was engaged in. That made him a great example for others to look up to and an excellent young man by any measure. But this is not the only model of excellence we should be focused on, and it would be sending a poor message to the boys if it was, because it would imply that excellence is only a standard that can be reached by a very few in any area of life, which is both discouraging and I would say inaccurate. Instead, we need to impress on them that there are other kinds of excellence. In particular, there is situational and personal excellence. Tim Buchanan is a great example of the former. On paper, his time at MBA seems fairly ordinary. Good, but not spectacular grades, a solid, but not exceptional athlete. But the context of his situation also matters. He entered MBA in the 9th grade as the only student from his prior school here on the campus. He was being raised by his extended family and having to help raise younger cousins and siblings as well along the way, so overall living a life very different from a typical MBA student. And we should further consider that he not only overcame the challenges he faced, but also carved out a college path for himself that allowed for him to develop his passion for creative design and art to the extent he's already founded a shoe design company while still in college. So while he may not have been at the absolute top of any list or ranking we may have, he absolutely embodies excellence and is a great example for others to look up to. And finally, there is personal excellence, which means that you've worked hard to push yourself to the peak of your powers, even if you are not objectively the best at what you do. And for this, I want to use Ben Alassi as an example. A member of our tennis program through all 6 years of his time at MBA, he faced a fierce battle for the final #6 spot on our varsity team by his senior year. Earning that spot meant constant practice, overcoming setbacks, working to improve, but he did it. And that left him occupying that critical position heading into the state championship. His match became the crucial one. He had to win it for us to win the state title. And when he did make the winning volley to clinch that crucial point, he became the hero of the hour. Was he the best player on the team? No. Is he likely to play competitive tennis in the future? No. In fact, it would not have been inaccurate to say that measured by the range of talent on display over those few days, he was simply a good, average tennis player. And average is not excellent. But in fact, I would argue that the antonym of excellence is not average, it is mediocrity. And busting a gut to perform at the highest level you can and delivering a crucial result for your team in a high-pressure situation does not signify mediocrity. It signifies excellence. And so I would also hold Ben up as an example of excellence for others to emulate. Ultimately, the question we should always be asking our boys is not quite the same one as we should be asking ourselves. Rather than why not the best, we should be asking them why not your best. For if everyone is striving to do their best, then you have a culture of excellence. Even if there will still only be one valedictorian, one starting quarterback, and one student body president, everyone in that community has the potential to be excellent. So thank you for being here this evening and supporting our drive for excellence across all parts of the school. I hope that you enjoy the dinner we're about to serve, and just before we get ready to tuck into that, I would ask you to join me in welcoming a final example of both personal and institutional excellence for the night, and someone for whom I have the greatest respect, Robert Sawyer.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd. I wasn't sure which way that introduction was going to go, so I'll edit some of my opening comments there. I'm Robert Sawyer. Let me take you back to the summer of 1996. It was between my 10th and 11th grade years at MBA. I was 17 years old, and I was hired by Brad Joya and Mr. David Norton to work on the grounds crew at MBA. This was my first real job. Some of my important duties included cutting the grass, taking out the trash, cleaning the pool in one of MBA's rental houses on Brighton Road, cleaning a dead turtle and raccoon out of that same pool. However, the most notable part of that job for me that summer was that I was also tasked with killing moles in Brad Joya's yard that summer. I only killed 3 over the course of the summer, and so I felt fairly unsuccessful in my efforts to help Brad and Minna win best yard in the neighborhood. I now teach 10th grade English and coach 9th grade football at MBA, and I serve as the dean of the high school. So it's important to note that I basically have the same job of killing Brad's moles that I did 25 years ago. Having gone to MBA for 6 years and now in my 20th year working here, I've spent almost 2/3 of my life at this school. Although there's certainly something to be said about having a wide variety of experiences, I also think there's something nice about having been somewhere for a long time, about having put down roots somewhere, about having a culture, a set of expectations, and an ethos that becomes a part of you. It's especially nice to be associated with an institution like MBA that I feel proud of, one that represents many of my core values: honesty, integrity, hard work, empathy. These are values that I was taught at MBA, and I now hope to pass them on to current students at the school as well. So I expect that many of you in this audience tonight have had a similar experience. My experience at MBA has been reciprocal. And by that I mean that I have benefited from my time here, both as a student and an employee. But I also hope that I've been a benefit to the school in those roles as well. And I expect that many of you have a similar relationship to the school. You've benefited from this great institution, either as a student, a spouse, a parent, a grandparent, a friend of the school, and you've also been a benefit to the school. As an alum and as a member of the faculty and staff, I want to thank you all for being here tonight, and especially for your support of this great institution. Obviously, your financial support of this school is tremendous and truly appreciated. But your gifts of time, of talent, of friendship, those are easy to overlook. They're hard to see on a balance sheet, but they're also very important. And finally, I want to encourage you to maintain that reciprocal relationship with our school. We hope that this school that you have benefited will continue to benefit you as well. We want to continue building things here that you are proud of, be they buildings on campus, the physical property, or the student body, the alumni base, the faculty and staff. We hope that all of these represent your generosity well. And so to close, I want to thank you for your support of the school, and I want you to know that we're working hard to create a school worthy of that support. So thank you, and roll red.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Tim. It's a pleasure and a joy and privilege to work with both of you and the other 150 faculty and staff members here. Robert was just talking about support, and I thought I would close with these brief comments about remembering MBA through the prism of these last 28 years. In 1994, when I arrived and started studying what I felt could be stronger at MBA, I thought the school was a really strong school. I just thought it had the potential to be better, and that was one of my goals, is to do everything I could to make it stronger and better. We had an annual fund of $230,000 the previous year, and I thought, well, that's an area I could work on. In the first year I was here, 94-5, we had an annual fund of $750,000. And we had a small gathering at Clay Jackson's house, I think he's here tonight, celebrating that annual fund. We just finished a year where we had an annual fund of almost $4 million. So the journey financially has certainly been a terrific one for the school. When I came to MBA, we had 30 acres on this campus. We now have 50 at the Harding Road site, another 10 acres about 1.5 miles from here in Sylvan Park, and over 200 an hour and a half from here on Long Mountain. The campus is very different. Lots of new buildings. This one is one of my favorite, but many of you have been in the new Burkholder Center. You know how fun it's been to see the growth physically on the campus. But I've learned that that growth is fun, meaningful, valuable. I talked about the importance today of honoring programs, making sure, let's say, the robotics or the riflery program have excellent facilities, so you really genuinely show them you care about their programs and their people. But what I have really learned is it's the people that make the biggest difference, and how you can inculcate in the young men here the values, the inner strength, the resources. That's what really is important. And so I frequently say it's not about the 4 or 6 years, but it's about the 50, the 60, the 70 years after you're here that really should define what kind of school MBA is. In fact, I remember I would say at these meetings to the seniors that MBA is a college preparatory school, that's the most important issue, and now I get up and say, I don't believe that. It is important, but it's a byproduct of building the kind of person you are. And that's much more important than anything else here. I went to St. Paul's School, which is one of our feeder schools, about a week ago, and I was thinking about what Clark Lee, the football coach at Vanderbilt, said at Assembly a week or two ago, and he graduated from MBA in 2000, and he said every day he goes into his office at Vanderbilt, he thinks, I don't deserve this, I have to earn it. And as I was meeting all these parents that morning, I said, you want to work hard at getting to know these people. That's important. Every day should be important, and we want to keep earning the excellence that Tim and Robert talked about. And another aspect that I'll close on that I think is really important at MBA is teaching boys to be better men. There are clear examples of the stereotypes of masculinity that we all know about, but teaching boys the power of being vulnerable, teaching them to be kind, teaching them to have empathy, those are really powerful traits that we want to continue to emphasize at MBA, and we want to create a culture where the boys support one another regardless of what a young man is interested in. And I believe that culture is here now, and I think it is probably the greatest prize at the school. The boys have fun here, they come early, they sit in this dining hall together, they study, they're glad to see their classmates early. You should see them at lunch. I heard them clapping and singing in here today while I was in a meeting in the adjoining room. But we also give them a great education, and to give you a final example of that, in class yesterday, one of the students walked in late, and another student said, well, here comes the prodigal son. And I heard it, and this was right before we started teaching, and I said, okay, you mentioned the prodigal son, who can tell me the story of the prodigal son? And Billy, who used that expression, did a very good job talking about the story in some detail. And I said, well, it's one of my favorite stories in the Bible. And I said to several of them, have you seen the Rembrandt painting of the prodigal son? And one of them had been to St. Petersburg, to the Hermitage, and he had seen it. And I said, have you read or do you know about Henri Nouwen's book about the prodigal son? And then I said to them, teaching you this kind of cultural knowledge will help you your entire life, because you'll have a vocabulary, a lexicon, an understanding of what really is important in the world. And so we try to give the boys that power of being empathetic, of being kind, of being vulnerable, of having that kind of those skills and that learning that will, in fact, we hope, make a difference. And we hope that's what your investments are all about. As Robert was saying at the end of his talk, we want you to be proud of the place we are building and the boys we are building. So thanks again for being here tonight. Let's have a great dinner. I'll say a quick blessing. Join me. Let us pray. Bless this food to our use and us to thy service, and help us to be ever mindful of the needs of others. Amen.